important to save a kidney, especially in patients of diabetes. If you see the burden of this disease, this is not a social, this is not a medical disease, but it's a social and economic burden is huge over the country compared to any other complications of the diabetes, the CKD. So, and we harbor the maximum patients of this diabetic nephropathy. And for a country like us, it is always better to prevent the disease than to treat a chronic kidney disease by end-stage renal disease that is not only very expensive, but also very complicated, and it is not universally, nationally accessible to all the patients. This is, you can see it has increased over time, not because of the incidence has increased, but the method of detection, awareness, everything has increased. That's why the incidence of the disease as well as the prevalence of the disease, diabetic kidney disease, increased worldwide. And commonly, this is a common classification, although there is no hard and fast, but somebody who is a diabetes for quite some time, having a proteinuria of more than 300 milligrams, and that has been detected on 2 occasions in 3 to 6 months apart. And along with that, he is having a progressive decline in the glomerular filtration rate, plus minus elevated blood pressure. We consider this syndrome as a diabetic nephropathy or as a diabetic kidney disease. Initially, it is thought to be a natural process of this diabetes, which initially causes hyperfiltration, that comes into a stage of latency. After that, there develops microalbuminuria, then goes macro, and ultimately end-stage renal disease or the renal failure. But subsequently, with the development, we have known that these things are not that very simple or very linear. We are discussing about this proteinuria and its association with the kidney disease. It is advantage or disadvantage of the kidney. You can say that albuminuria is always a surrogate marker of the kidney. It is not a direct evidence. So if you have albumin in the urine, you think there's something normal in the kidney. So in many times, not only in diabetic diseases, many kidney diseases, it doesn't, this feature doesn't extrapolate into ultimate heart endpoints, that is the death, initiation of dialysis, doubling of creatinine, loss of GFR. So initially, it is thought to be that at the initial part of the diabetes, there is something which is very quiescent, and ultimately the development of proteinuria, then comes rise in the creatinine and the end-stage disease. So, but subsequently you have seen that it may not be like that. Its relationship is not that linear. So it can, but sometimes it is just the thing we see the loss of proteinuria, there is a loss, and you can see the relation of proteinuria with the loss of GFR. You can see at this part is proteinuria, then it goes down renal disease, animal proteinuria because of loss of. So proteinuria never literally associated of any of the outcome the kidney disease. It has a questionable in terms of its impact on the development of the end-stage disease. It's more linear in cases of type 1 diabetes because so many reasons, many things are predictable in 1 diabetes.
Unfortunately, no slide is coming and no voice is audible.
Somo, I think there is a problem in the network. Problem is there.
Yes, Anirban, I mean, neither the slides are visible nor is it audible.
Hello. Hello.
Pratik, you are muted. Please unmute yourself.
হ্যালো ডক্টর দাস, একটু লগ আউট করে লগ ইন করে দেখুন। ল্যাব ডিসকের ভিডিও চালিয়ে দাও, এর আগের ভিডিওটা আর এই ভিডিও চালিয়ে দাও। ঠিক আছে, দেখা যাচ্ছে।
So ultimately, it's not only the physiological thing. Something simultaneously happens within the cell, and that is sometimes after sometimes it is visible or it is detectable in terms of albuminuria. And the GFR, initial high GFR gradually falls, and which is of our main concern. Subsequently, comorbidities develop like hypertension, anemia, which may contribute to the ultimate outcome, and the kidney complication happens pretty late. So it is a ample scope that we can save kidney by taking small measures in the initial phases. So whenever a patient comes with diabetes to any of us, any of our physicians, initial phase to detect this, check the two things. It is albumin in the two things are important to check: the albumin in the urine and the estimation of the GFR. So this is a simple test, and it should be done at the initiation of the diagnosis of any in the patients of type 2 diabetes, and after 5 years of the diagnosis of the type 1 diabetes, as you all know. And it can be a simple spot sample, or it can be a 24 hours collection. Spot sampling, because it is because of ease of collections and ease of testing, it is always better than compared to a 24 hours collection, which is considered to be a gold standard. And is early morning sample, because of a 12 hours of the collections within the bladder, it is always better to collect in the morning, early morning sample. And because sometimes the day samples are falsely negative, and it also sometimes very falsely positive in tract infections like a high protein intake. Sometimes during this process of menstruation, there is one common mistake made, and sometimes of the drug intake, as well as patients of congestive heart failure, acute febrile illness. So whenever we are testing, it is always advisable to test them urine albumin creatinine ratio in the early morning sample, and that should be and we have to exclude the factors that can contribute, because we are on the way of diagnosis of a diabetic kidney disease based on this simple test. But one test that sometimes may not be adequate and we require some 2 or more tests. So whenever we get a positive results or a confusing results, or a result that is not normal, it is always better to tell that you should repeat at least with a gap of 2 weeks, or in a 3 months time, at least 2 tests if are positive, then we should consider to be considered to be presence of the albuminuria. Initially, there's a term called microalbuminuria and macroalbuminuria. This is less than 300 and more than 300. That definition is slightly changed. Now it is considered if it is less than albumin excretion ratio or the ACR, if it is less than 30, then is considered to be a normal. 330 to 300 is a moderately increased, and more than 300 it is severely increased. So as we were discussing few minutes back, that if this is more than 300, then we consider to be a significant albuminuria and a part of the kidney disease. And depending upon that, there is some staging has been developed that is given by the KDIGO, and there's A1, A2, A3, depending upon less than 30, 30 to 300, more than 300. Why it is required, I'm telling you later on, but it is required. So whenever you get, you test that, you have to avoid the false positive result, and you have to repeat. So it should be reproducible result, whatever maybe the lab errors, because ACR, there's basically very little standardization amongst the labs, especially if the values are low in the tune of 60, 70, 80, 35 like that. But in those situations, you have to repeat the test and the false positive result. But is this albuminuria is enough? Probably no. At the same time, when the patient comes to us for the first time, you have to estimate the GFR. GFR is the direct measurement of the kidney function, and that can be estimated or that can be measured. We usually in our clinic at the office, we can estimate by using different formulas. This is a Cockcroft and Gault formula that is a very easy to calculate, that you can do by a pen and your notebook. But in the prescription, but these are so many fallacies, because it is mostly detected in very small American patients who are diseased kidney, and they are very much inaccurate in different subsets group of the patients, especially those patients who have a normal creatinine value. So after that develops the modifications of the MDRD equations that is more acceptable compared to this Cockcroft formula, which is now mostly used while prescribing the drugs. Basically, prescribing the drugs basically, but MDRD formulation is also mostly applicable when the patients have a relatively damaged kidney. That is, when the GFR you are expecting less than 60, it is more accurate compared to the patients who have a normal creatinine. And for that is EPI formula. That is the only formula that has been tested outside America, and it also in some Asian patients. And this is more applicable and more accurate, especially in cases who having a normal creatinine value or a normal GFR. So it is considered to be an integral part of the renal function assessment, not the proteinuria. Proteinuria is a surrogate marker of the kidney diseases, and it is significantly contributed to the outcome of the disease. If you get some amount of the albuminuria, you cannot predict the timing and the development of the end-stage renal disease. But if you get the eGFR low, that is definitely a part of the significant outcome. So based on this eGFR, also we have the diseases has been classified according to the stages. Initial stages is more than 90 considered to be the normal. Even if the patient has got some anatomical abnormality, they have a kidney disease. And to the G5, the stage 1, the stage 5, that is the end stage renal disease. And our idea is to preserve the GFR as much as possible and preventing them in entering in the less than 15. So what is that? Proteinuria or the GFR? Because the microalbuminuria, that is basically an indication of there is a diffuse endothelial dysfunction. The body is maybe a coronary arteries, maybe a mesenteric arteries, maybe a peripheral arteries, or the renal vasculature, there is an endothelial dysfunction. So whenever you get a microalbuminuria in a patient, we are not only concerned about the development of the kidney disease, but we are more concerned the patient probably having entering in a stage where he is having a more cardiovascular disease and a peripheral vascular disease like that. So proteinuria basically predicts the ESRD only in 40% of the situation. So sometimes we follow the proteinuria. Somebody is very crazy to reduce the proteinuria from 600 milligram to 500 milligram. Patient relatives and the patient sometimes sir, proteinuria is not decreasing. Initially it was 400, now it has become 600, but it is not an accurate marker. It predicts DSRD only in 40% of the situation, and in some situations proteinuria may disappear, because proteinuria can happen so many things even with a vigorous exercise, febrile illnesses, and even in the dietary alterations. It may disappear sometimes, and in 15 to 20% cases of the type 2 diabetes even, we sometimes may not get any proteinuria by the conventional test. But if there is proteinuria along with a low GFR, this is definitely a significant adverse outcome. But when the patient first comes to your chamber or our chamber, Just we see how much proteinuria is there. You assess the GFR by using the appropriate formulae, and the patients try to keep the patients in this box. This will give you how frequently he or she should be visited in a year. If it is a red box in the right low corner, basically the patient having a kidney failure, he should at least come more than 4 times in a year. And if the patient is having a slightly albuminuria or a mild low GFR, he may come once in a year in the hospital. So this gives you an idea how much frequently to a clinician the patient should visit. But whenever you are assessing such patients and putting the patients having a kidney disease, that you should look for the reversibility. Any diabetic patients may have at the same time a renovascular disease. Although it is low, if you give an SE or the ARBs in these patients, there may be a worsening and even development of acute renal failure. So if you get a no protein is there is an accelerated hypertension, severe atherosclerotic disease in other organs. In those situations, you should exclude the renovascular diseases. In a male patients, always you exclude an obstruction, because an elderly patient having a prostatic obstructions, and that is causing a rapid decline in the GFR. Patient may be dehydrated due to diuretic use or the vomiting, or maybe some metabolic factors, usually hypercalcemia or the hyperuricemia, the factors that contributes to the worsening of the GFR and coexisting nephropathy. So these are the things you have to exclude before stamping the patient. The patient is having a kidney disease, or the patient is having the GFR, low GFR or stable. So all these formula we have used, that is for a stable creatinine. Not only you have to exclude the reversible factors, but this is another important thing. Sometimes many of the diabetic patients may have a non-diabetic kidney disease, and that is totally different outcome. So if the patient having a microscopic hematuria with RBC cast, with a proteinuria, the abrupt worsening of the renal functions, if they don't get retinopathy or any systemic flu having arthralgia, arthritis, rashes like that, in those situations, you should think of a non-diabetic kidney disease. And many of the studies have shown that so many glomerular diseases are associated with diabetic patients in a restrictive biopsy policy, because if you do open biopsy policy in the kidney diseases, you get a more of a diabetic nephropathy. But in restrictive diabetic policy, biopsy policy, you'll get a FSGS, MSD, membranous glomerulopathy, and so on. Why it is important? Suppose this is an important slide, because if you know our kidney loses function, the GFR loss after the age of 40 is 1 ml per year. So after 45 or 40 years of every one of us lose 1 ml of GFR per year. But in diabetic patients, they usually lose more than 5 ml GFR if you don't treat them. Hypertensive patients lose 3 ml per year if you don't treat them. Our idea is to make this 5 ml loss, and if the patient is both diabetic and hypertensive, there is a loss of 8 ml GFR per year. So our idea is to closing this GFR difference from 8 ml to between 8 ml towards 1 ml. That is the idea of saving a kidney for a longer period. So how this can be done? This can be done most importantly if you know the GFR in the first sitting. You can prevent the development of AKI in the patients of the diabetes. Because sometimes they require an angiography. You can avoid the contrast media if you know the GFR. You can treat the infections by non-nephrotoxic drugs if you know the GFR. Sometimes if the patient gives some hydration status may be optimized. So if you prevent these AKIs, you can see the upper curve. You can improve your curve in terms of loss of the GFR. So how this can be done? There are so many evidences that class 1 evidence, you know better than me, control of diabetes, control of hypertension, SE inhibitors. These are the level 1 evidences, and others are the other evidences. If you see I am not discussing diabetes in detail, but I am going to the hypertension part. Suppose in a normal kidney, there's a normal kidney, your blood pressure is not transmitted in the kidney, because in the glomerulus there are so many barriers which prevent the transmission of the hypertension to the intraglomerular hypertension, but in diabetes it is lost. And if you see that if in the presence of a CKD, the patient is having a combination of albuminuria and the low GFR, if you lower the BP in that extent, you can preserve the GFR. You can see if a patient, the blood pressure, mean arterial pressure is 120, that is the loss of GFR is in the tune of 8 to 10. And if the mean GFR is less than 90, it is the tune of 0 to 2. So the control of blood pressure is so important in this subgroup of patients. And this is more so if the patient is having more proteinuria. And You can see it is not always very easy to control the hypertension in the presence of the diabetes and the kidney disease. It sometimes requires so many drugs, and different studies have shown average 3.5 drugs is required to control the BP. But ultimately, the choice depends on the blood pressure control impact. There are so many things that can give you the additional benefit, but blood pressure must be controlled. That is the primary thing you need. Just which agent?
You have 1 minute's time to wrap up.
The different drugs, you can see which can cause this very close to the adequate, such as I'm taking you through that because this is this something we should preserve the GFR, preserve the renal blood flow, it preserve the intraglomerular pressure. You should not cause a natriuresis, caluresis like that. And very close to this, this one is the ACEs and the ERBs, well, followed by this alpha blocker and the calcium channel blockers. But the adverse outcomes are on the diuretics as well as in the other drugs. So ACE and the ARB inhibition, they not only causes the loss of lowering the interglomerular pressure, but they also causes by preventing the TGF beta, they could prevent the fibrosis. So in the normotensive persons who have proteinuria, give in hypertensive non-proteinuria, less beneficial, but no benefit among the patients who are the non-albuminuric. So there's so many trials that has been confirmed their benefit. I am not going to the. But in cases the ACEs or the ARB, which is better, these are the debates. But in type 1 diabetes, is always ACEs are the betters, and because they have developed in two different eras, so head-to-head comparison is very little. And this, especially the patient who have a damaged kidney or a low GFR, ARBs are better because they are not excreted by the kidney. So dose adjustment is not required. So oral hypoglycemics, I am not going to the detail, but better you control the blood sugar, and better is the chances of the saving the kidneys. And lastly, I am telling one or two things regarding these drugs, because till now we have only one drug to reduce the interglomerular pressure, but now we have another drug that can also cause an interglomerular pressure reduction. You can see that on the left side is a normal glomerulus, there's afferent arterial blood is coming, and there is a filtration of the glucose in the proximal tubule, and this glucose in the proximal tubule is reabsorbed through a sodium co-transporter. In the diabetes, there is excess of the glucose that comes into the proximal tubule, and this proximal tubule, this is the reabsorbed, and so that the sodium is also reabsorbed, and so that the distal tubule gets a less amount of the sodium, and it sends a feedback that probably the kidney is losing, there is something which should be prevented. And in those situations, the afferent arteriole gets constricted. So they try to preserve the sodium and the interglomerular pressure reduced. ACEs and the ARBs reduce the interglomerular pressure by dilating the efferent arteriole.
Sir, if you could conclude, please.
Okay. So this is the basic mechanism, and this concept it came from the patients, particularly the patients of Fanconi syndrome. And when it was I was attending this plenary lecture before development in 2009 in American Society of Nephrology, and it is came from the concept that Fanconi syndrome patients. There's basically they have a natural SGLT2 inhibition for a longer time since their birth. I mean, even in spite they are a part of a significant diseases like multiple myeloma, they never develop renal failure. So from this concept probably has come, and that has been subsequently supported by so many trials in terms of eGFR, in terms of albuminuria, in terms of this is irrespective of their RAS blockade or non-blockade status. So ADA has recommended also this patient, especially if the patient having a GFR of more than 30. But one thing is important, that in those group patients, urinary tract infections, particularly fungal infections, are important. At the same time, you have to do something about this, about your lifestyle modification like obesity or the smoking, that is also has any adverse outcome of the kidney diseases. But one thing is important, again I am going at repeating the slide, that is the preservation of the GFR is most important. And for that, another thing is important, timely handing over the patients for the further care. You see the patient, examine the patient, follow up the patient, measure the GFR, and in point of time you hand over to them for the further care, so that not only the kidney, the life can be saved either by the process of dialysis or the transplantations for ultimate outcome. Thank you.
you.